Australians are losing almost $1 billion a year to card surcharges, but the Reserve Bank could mandate a scheme to cut the costs. Least cost routing means terminals in businesses automatically default to the lowest price network. Currently, 64% of business terminals are enabled with this cost-cutting initiative. But the RBA could make it mandatory if the goal of 80% uptake isn't met by mid-year. Joining me now from Melbourne is Adjunct Professor at Swinburne University, Steve Worthington. Professor Worthington, we are being charged too much. How is this happening? Can you explain it to us?
It's a difficult explanation, but I'll do my very best. There's been a surge of surcharging in this country in the past couple of years, really. Merchants, as we call them, people who accept payments, are allowed to surcharge, but it should be no more than the cost of what's called their merchant acquirer, their merchant service fee. However, we still see people who don't, and they're actually supposed obliged to tell every customer that there is a surcharge for this product. Now, I don't think we get that at all. I sometimes have to pay for coffees and there's nobody that tells me there's a surcharge. The only way I find out I've been surcharged is when I look at my statement, which is not a regular occasion anyway. So we are in a situation where, yes, we're getting more and more surcharges, and the less cost routing is a way the RBA hopes to change that.
Yeah, and where are these surcharges more likely to be? Is it small business rather than bigger business?
Well, there is an example of, obviously, the small and medium enterprises have heavily got into taking transactions, not necessarily, though, with the large banks who are the normal providers. But I would point out that also you get surcharged on various, for example, my local government, my rates. When I pay my rates, if I pay by credit card, I get surcharged by my local authority. So it's not just restricted to the small and medium enterprises.
And this lower cost option can be made the default, but that's not being taken up to the extent that the RBA would like to see.
That's correct in many, many respects. Paradoxically here, it's not been made a default by the major banks who were traditionally the acceptors of these kind of payments. But we're seeing new, if you like, merchants, new providers coming on the scene, the likes of Square and Swipe. Square has those little white boxes and you tap onto that. Now they go straight to low-cost routing, pay a very low rate to the Reserve Bank figures there, which is just a cheap way of doing things on EPFOS. But nevertheless, they keep the rest of the surcharge for themselves or for the merchant who uses that particular payment instrument.
So the pressure to bring these costs down, is that coming from consumers or the RBA, or the RBA via consumers?
It's coming from the RBA, who think that low-cost routing would be the way to get cheaper payments, etc. But I'm not sure that the RBA's theory will work in terms of surcharging, because at the moment the surcharging is not necessarily controlled by the RBA's decisions, and low-cost routing will not stop people surcharging. It's just that it's a more efficient way of getting a payment made for the merchant and for the terminal supplier.
And so has the RBA set a timeline or a target in this request?
I think you mentioned in the intro, the RBA has been very keen for quite a large number of years to maintain EPFOS as a payment option. We tend to rely on Visa, MasterCard, American Express, etc. So we don't want to lose EPFOS, but it's how to generate the volume of business that makes it worthy of keeping. And that's what the RBA, I think, is focusing on. I'm just questioning that whether what they're offering is going to actually get around that situation, particularly as regards surcharging.
Yeah, because, are there any consequences if these surcharges continue at a higher rate than they need to be?
Well, one of the consequences is it increases our cost of living, because if we purchase something and pay for something with a card, we're often being surcharged. Sometimes I would suggest an amount that is in excess of the cost to the merchant of doing that transaction. So it's a danger for us all in that I'm a big fan of keeping cash, and I think I often say, when in some situations I say, is there a surcharge? They say yes. I say, well, in that case, I'll pay by cash. And that's one simple way of, if you like, reducing your expenses. But nevertheless, it's not for everybody.
Yeah, and increasingly difficult in this world. Now, that is our adjunct professor at Swinburne University, Steve Worthington. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.